everyone. Welcome to today's Learn with Google webinar on getting started with Google Tag Manager. My name is Sarah Moked, and I'm a marketing manager here at Google. And one of my biggest priorities is making sure that our users really understand our products so they can get the most out of them and get the most out of their online businesses. And so that means whatever kind of business you have, whether you're selling socks or sharing music videos or collecting charitable donations, I know that you've all been working hard to improve your online success. And that's really why we're here today. Google makes the web work for you. And we do that by helping you to win the moments that matter, to enable better decisions, and to constantly innovate. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Laura Holmes, our product manager. And she's going to tell you more about how Google Tag Manager can help you. Can help you win the moments that matter by letting you enable the campaigns you want to reach your customers across the web, to enable better decisions by collecting more data and better quality data, and to constantly innovate, because once you've removed those tagging constraints, you can run the programs that you need to run at the moment when you want to run them. But before we get to that fun stuff, I just have to run through a few quick housekeeping notes. So I know some of you are probably just trickling in and maybe still checking that last email. If you can just give me your attention for one moment. First thing is to note that yes, indeed, this webinar will be recorded. We get that question all the time. I assure you, you'll receive a link in about a week or so. Second thing I want to note is that you'll see along the bottom of your console there's a bunch of little handy-dandy widgets. So the first widget that I want to focus on is that Q&A widget. You can chat in with your questions at any time. I'll be here responding to those, and my colleague Dean Glassenberg, who's our head of sales for Google Tag Manager, will also be on hand to respond to you. Plus, Laura will be taking some live questions at the end of the webinar. Next thing I want to point out is that little green folder widget. You'll see we have a bunch of links included in the resources there. Any link that we refer to during the course of the webinar you'll be able to find, and you'll find our website, blog, and help center. Next is a couple of social sharing widgets. We've got a Twitter widget and a Google Plus widget. Please go ahead and share during the webinar. We encourage you to use the hashtag measure. And last but not least, I want to point out that little survey widget. Please, 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 before you leave, do fill that out. It's not just because we want your feedback. It's also because we have a drawing for a Nexus 7. So go ahead and enter that before you go. So with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Laura Holmes, the product manager for Google Tag Manager. Laura, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and thank you so much for everyone for your attention during this webinar. I'm super excited to tell you about Google Tag Manager. And before I get into the juicy details, I want to first talk about why we built Google Tag Manager in the first place. We've been hearing over the past several years, as marketing has gotten more and more sophisticated, that many of our customers are having challenges with so many tags. They make it hard to actually deploy new marketing tools, and there's a lot of delays in the whole tagging process. We hear complaints about how tags take up to 9 months to get on a site, or there's too many tags and it's slowing down my website. And so as marketing gets more and more sophisticated, we see that larger websites have 15 to 20 different tracking tags. And because marketers are the ones defining the goals around which tags should actually be live on the site, and IT are the people who are actually deploying those tags, you get a mismatch of priorities because IT wants to go ahead and focus on the things that actually make the site run as opposed to data collection. So because of the mismatch of priorities, getting tags live can take weeks or months. And the marketers are dependent on whether or not the IT folks can actually deploy those tags. Because of the delay, that means that there's less data being collected, and there's also the lost opportunities on reaching out to your clients using this data. So to sum it all up, the problems with tagging today is that there's huge delays in actually getting tags live on a site. You get inaccurate data because there are actually challenges in getting those tags properly implemented. Sometimes they're collecting the wrong data, or slow tags actually prevent other tags from firing, and so therefore you're not getting as much data as you would like. And at the end of the day, everything is just so overly technical. You have to know HTML in order to actually get these things live on a site, and that's just way too much to have to think about when you're a marketer. So we built Google Tag Manager with 3 principles in mind to address these core problems. The first of which is we wanted to make marketers more agile. We also wanted to make sure that we shared the value of dependable data. So at Google, we know that dependable data means better insights. So we wanted to share that with the users of Google Tag Manager. And we wanted to make it all quick and easy. And a way to make it all quick and easy is to make it so that marketers, IT, and agencies are all empowered to make these tagging changes. So what we're doing is we're taking the current state of the world, which is we have all these different tracking tags across all these different pages. It looks all very messy, and consolidating it into a single tag, the Google Tag Manager tag, and making it much, much easier for marketers to get the data that they want without having to bother IT. So let's get actually into the details. So the nuts and bolts of Google Tag Manager is that it is a single snippet of code that you deploy across your entire site. And the single snippet of code is really important because it makes it very easy to actually install this. We'll talk more about how to actually implement Google Tag Manager later in the webinar. And in order to make marketers more agile, we did a couple of things. We made it so that if a marketer wants to push a tag live, we can publish things in seconds. We've also paid a ton of attention to making sure that the UI is actually intuitive, and we've also made it so that there's the ability to manage multiple users and multiple accounts within the user interface to facilitate workflow. We've also worked a lot to make data dependable, and in order to do that, we focused on making tags fast. So when you have fast-loading tags, you're able to collect more data. So more about how we actually achieve that in just a moment. Then as far as actually making sure that you're collecting the data that you want, we've focused on making a rules-based engine. So when you go into Google Tag Manager, what you'll do is you'll create rules associated with various different tracking tags to make sure that the tags fire on the pages that you want. One of the issues that we see very often with tagging implementations is that tags are firing on pages where they shouldn't be, so you get kind of inflated data because you're getting too many hits, or you're not getting the data that you want because tags aren't actually on the pages that they should be. And then the last thing that we've done with dependable data is that we've created these really easy-to-use templates for the various different tracking tags that you might deploy. And what a template means, and we'll show you this during the demo, but what the template is we provide a couple of easy-to-use parameters where you'll just copy and paste in a couple, some data, and then we'll actually auto-generate the code for you. So no more having to muck around with code. You can just add in a couple of key parameters, and then we'll take care of the rest. And then in the off chance that maybe something that you copy and pasted in might not actually be correct, we also do automated error checking to make sure that the tags actually fire correctly. So a little bit more about how tags are loaded more quickly with Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager loads asynchronously and loads all of the other tracking tags asynchronously. What that means is you'll see here on the screen a sample website, and the Google Tag Manager script is deployed at the top. What will happen when the user visits this page is that a call will actually be made to Google Tag Manager. And it will take whatever has been configured within the Google Tag Manager interface, create the most recent configuration, and send that back to the site. However, while this whole thing is happening, the rest of the page can keep loading because the Google Tag Manager script loads asynchronously. Also, any subsequent tags that are fired with Google Tag Manager are also loaded asynchronously. So if you have a single bad performing tag, it's not going to halt other tags from collecting data. And the last thing that I want to highlight before we get to the demo is what we did to make it all very quick and easy. So we wanted to make it so that if you want to make a change, you can do it yourself. And if you notice a problem, you can change it yourself. So one of the things that we did is that we created a quick and easy view to view all of your tags in one place. So if you have a question of, hey, is that tag actually firing on that page like I expect, you can actually go in and see it in one consolidated view as opposed to having to go to the site, go look at the page source and look at HTTP sniffers and that kind of thing. Additionally, we've built these, one of my favorite features is the debug console in preview mode. So what this feature enables you to do is actually see the pre-configured, pre-published version of your tracking tags before you actually publish them, so that if you make a change, you can actually verify that it's working the way you expect. So without further ado, I'm going to go into a demo. But before we start, I want to just take a few moments to tell you about that the demo is actually going to pop up in a new browser window, so make sure that you have turned off your pop-up blockers. If a new window does not appear for you, there will be a launch screen share link appearing in the slide window area. Please hold down the Control key on your keyboard and click the link, and that should bypass any pop-up blockers you may have installed. So with that, I'm going to go to the demo. So what you'll see here is the Google Tag Manager user interface. This is my consolidated view of everything that's going on with my container. A container is basically a kind of one-to-one with the tracking snippet that I mentioned earlier. So you'll see here, this is this code snippet that you would install on your site, and wherever that snippet fires is where these rules and tags will take place. So for the purposes of this demo, we're going to pretend that I have this luxury travel site. It's a very easy, simple site where you can buy luxury travel vacation packages. I'm going to quickly just click through to show you the pages that we'll be dealing with. Most of these pages are actually separate pages. However, there is a dynamic page view here when I click Details. So the URL stays the same. And for most intents and purposes, that would not actually generate a new page view. But as far as I'm concerned as a user, it is a new page, so I'll want to track that. Then once I get to Book Now, I'll say how many travelers I want and submit the reservation. And this is the thank you page. So we'll go back to the Google Tag Manager interface now, and I'll show you what I've done already, and we'll go ahead and add a new tag as well. So what you'll see here is that I've already installed my Google Tag Manager snippet on the site, as well as I've already installed my Google Analytics tag. I have a rule here that says that the Google Analytics tag should fire on all pages. But for that tricky dynamic page load, I also have a rule that says that I should treat that dynamic page load as just a regular track page view event with Google Analytics. So this is the current state of the world. Now I want to go back to my luxury travel site, and the thank you page, I'll want to install a AdWords conversion tracking tag. And I'll also want to pass in this dynamic value. So we'll go back to Google Tag Manager and click on this New Tag button. And I'll go ahead and name my tag as my AdWords conversion tracking tag. Now what you can do here is select the tag type. What you'll see within this drop-down is that we have several different tagging templates. We have some Google tags here. There will be more tag templates coming in the future, including non-Google third-party tags. And we also have the option here to include a custom HTML tag or a custom image tag. I'll just show you those quickly. What this enables is you can actually copy and paste in any tracking code that we don't have a template for. But back to the AdWords conversion tracking tag, you'll see here that I have two parameters. These are the two parameters that uniquely identify this conversion tracking tag. And so what I'll do, if I actually had a conversion tracking tag I wanted to use, I would copy and paste in the conversion ID and the conversion label. But since I'm just doing a demo, I'm going to just kind of add a couple of fake parameters. And then we'll auto-generate the code for this particular conversion tracking tag. Now I mentioned that I also want to pass in the value of the vacation package that was just purchased. And here's one of my favorite features of Google Tag Manager. We have this conversion value. Typically what you'd have to do to configure this is you would have to take the actual snippet of the AdWords conversion tracking tag and mess with the URL parameters in order to pass in a conversion value. That requires retagging every time you would want to do it. However, we have this feature called macros. And what you can do is actually pull existing data from the page without having to retag. So let me show you. We have the thank you page right here, and you can see that the value for price is actually already included in the HTML. What I'll do is I will take the macro and I'll say this macro's name is price, and the macro type is a data layer variable that I've already defined, and the name of that is price. I'll save it, and now when this tag is fired, it'll dynamically look up the value from the page and insert it into this tracking tag. The last thing I'll need to do is associate a rule for where this tag should be firing. So what I'll do is right now I have two existing rules for fire this tag on all pages and a dynamic page view. But now I'll create a new rule called thank you page. And the URL for the thank you page, you can't see it in the demo, but I'll take my word for it that it contains thank you in it. And then I'll press save and save again. So now you'll see that in my overview of my current tag configuration, my new AdWords conversion tracking tag is all queued up to fire on the thank you page and collect the price variable and pass it through. So let's actually get this live. In order to do that, I'll create a version, which is basically a snapshot of the current configuration. And before I actually publish this live to the site, I actually want to preview it to make sure it's working the way I expect. So what this will do is it'll actually put my browser into a preview mode. And let's go back to the luxury travel site. What you'll see here is that I've loaded the pre-published version of that tag configuration onto the luxury travel site, and I've also enabled a debug console. This debug console is actually one of my favorite things because it allows you to see the things that you care about and none of the stuff that you don't care about. So right now, if you were to look to verify if the Google Analytics tag was actually firing, you'd have to go into your into various different debug tools and check to see if the utm.gif, which is the tracking tag for Google Analytics, you actually have to go ahead and see if that tag is actually firing. That requires a lot more knowledge and a lot more parsing than I'm personally willing to do. And so in this debug console, I can see, oh look, my Google Analytics tag is actually firing and my AdWords conversion tracking tag is not. So that's all I care about when I'm in Google Tag Manager, and that's all we're going to tell you. So moving forward, we'll just click through quickly to verify that my AdWords conversion tracking tag actually shows up where I expect. You'll see here as I click through that my Google Analytics tag is continuing to fire, but my AdWords conversion tracking tag is not. So with that, I'll submit my reservation, and you'll see here the AdWords conversion tracking tag is actually firing on the thank you page, just what I would expect. So now that I have confirmed with preview and debug mode that the changes that I made work the way I expect, I'll exit preview mode, and I'll go ahead and publish. And those changes go live in seconds. So I could go back here and figure out, is that change actually going live? I won't bother you with the details because it's that really ugly developer pain, but take my word for it. Now, the next thing that I want to show you, which is a little non-obvious, is our user permissioning model. So if we go into my demo account, you can see that I have one other container in here for a sensitive site, and then I can click into my users. And what you'll see here is that I actually have a couple of users already set up in my container and my account. As the person who manages this account, I can create new users using this new user button, and I can manage the permissions of everyone within the account. So you'll see here, if I click into my own permissions, that we have our container permissions, and for each of these, I have full rights on each container to view, edit, delete, and publish that container. So let's go back and look at some of the other user permissions. So Dean, who is actually answering questions right now, will go in, and I actually don't trust him as much as I wish I could, and so for this reason I have set him as view-only account permission. So with view-only, Dean cannot manage user permissions or add new users, but he can still go into these various different containers and he can propose changes. So he can both view and edit the official GTM demo, but he actually can't publish yet. He has to wait for me, the person that I trust the most, to actually press the publish button. So he can go in and propose changes, but they don't actually go live yet. Another thing I want to highlight is that another level of permission we have with my friend Rachel. So as I mentioned earlier, we have two different containers within this particular account. We have our GTM demo, which we've already seen, but I actually have my more sensitive site also listed within this account. And so with Rachel, I'm happy to give her view-only access to the demo, but for my more sensitive site, I'm actually going to give her no access, which means that she cannot even see that container. So this level of permission setting may actually work quite well if you're a large company or if you're an agency with multiple clients. So I'm going to transition back now to the slides, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually get started. So hopefully by now you're super excited about Google Tag Manager and you can't wait to get it installed on your site. So these are the steps that we feel are necessary in order to get started with Google Tag Manager, and we'll dive into each one. So when you get started with Google Tag Manager, you want to assemble the right team. And in assembling the right team, the question is, who are they? What do they actually do? And what can you tell them to actually convince them to install Google Tag Manager? So the who, that's really simple. It's marketing and IT. Now, what they do is very important to how you convince them. So for marketers, and I believe that most of you on the line right now are marketers, it's really about trying to get the marketers are the ones actually deploying the tracking tags. So they're the ones setting the data collection goals. Now, as far as what IT does, those are the guys who are actually putting the tags live on the site. And as far as what you can tell each of these different sets of users to convince them that Google Tag Manager is the right answer to their tagging woes, for marketing you can just say, all right, get your campaigns live faster, collect more data. And then for IT, what you can tell them is, hey, stop worrying about all of this tagging stuff. Get back to the stuff that you really want to focus on. Focus on just keeping the site running and making improvements, and don't worry about this whole tagging stuff because Google Tag Manager has it covered. So what you'll see at the very bottom of this slide is that there's two different links. There's separate one-sheeters for each audience. So you can find links to these also in the resources button at the bottom of the webinar screen. So say you've assembled your team at this point. And so the next thing that you want to discuss is how are you actually going to get the Google Tag Manager actually installed on your site. And there are two main options to consider. The first is partner managed, and the second is a self-service option. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one and highlight the pros and the cons of each approach. So for partner managed, we have gone ahead and certified a number of partners to be experts in Google Tag Manager. So we've gone in and said, hey, can you actually implement Google Tag Manager? And they've done a phenomenal job. So they can help you for a fee to go in and install Google Tag Manager. One of the really nice things about the partner managed solution is that these partners aren't just a one-stop shop. They are experts in Google Tag Manager, but they also offer a variety of services also with being able to help you figure out what your measurement goals might be. And so if you're interested in that holistic view, that's also available. If you're interested in Partner Manage, you can find the list of our partners on our website. Now for self-service. Self-service basically means you, by yourself or with your IT team, are going to go and install Google Tag Manager. The pro of the self-service option is that it is cheaper, but it does require more work. That said, we built Google Tag Manager knowing that self-service was going to be of interest to a large number of people. And so we've created resources to help the self-service folks out there. So you can see here we have a link to our developer documentation, and we also have a user forum where you can ask questions if you get stuck along the way. I also want to mention at this point in time that if you are on this call and you're an existing Google Analytics Premium client or a DoubleClick client, the implementation services for Google Tag Manager are actually bundled with your pre-existing services contracts. So at this point in time, you have both assembled your team, figured out your implementation strategy. The next step is to actually take a step back and figure out what are you trying to measure. It's a great time when you're installing a tag management solution to really think about what are your overall goals about your site and what data do you want to be collecting. And what's nice about a tag management solution is that when you're thinking about what you want to measure, you can just think about what could happen in the future, and you can always associate a tag with that information later. So proactively implement. You want to think about, well, do I have this button here? Do I have a reason to track it? Well, maybe you don't now, but as you're installing, maybe you could in the future. And so this is a great time to just go ahead, do a full sweep of your site, and think about what is the full set of data that I could potentially want to collect, and then you can always associate tags with it later. And as far as mapping those goals to Google Tag Manager, there's basically three key elements in Google Tag Manager. The first is when you ask yourself, what data do you want to collect? This is things like I want to collect price, or I want to collect the fact that this was a return visitor, or I want to collect the fact that this user visited a particular product ID. That metadata maps to the macro data element within Google Tag Manager. Another question that you may ask yourself is, what events do you want to track? And examples of events could be things like page views, or it could be things like button clicks, or even watching a video. So if those are the events that you want to track, events map to rules in Google Tag Manager. So when I said, hey, I want the Google Analytics tag to fire on all pages, on all page views, that was an event that I decided I wanted to track. And then the very last thing is asking yourself, what vendors are you actually using to collect this data? I mentioned earlier that some of the more sophisticated websites are using 15 to 20 different vendors to collect data. So vendors actually correlate to the tags that you deploy in Google Tag Manager. So this is the mapping process of taking your measurement goals and mapping them to Google Tag Manager. And so assuming that you've done that, these are just this is an overview of the steps for a migration. So this is our best practice that we've been using with our clients. So the first step is to go ahead and go to googletagmanager.com, or actually, sorry, google.com/tagmanager, and you'll go ahead and create a container. The second step is to take that container, that associated snippet, and deploy it site-wide across your website. Step number 3 is to map the site to what you want to track. So that previous slide where I was saying what data do you want to collect, what events do you want to track, which vendors, that's the whole mapping process. And the fourth step is to take that map and actually insert it into the Google Tag Manager interface. The fifth step relies on step number 2. The fifth step is you test out your configuration before you publish it. So because you've deployed the empty container, that enables preview and debug mode across your entire site. So testing, basically make sure that everything you did, steps 1 through 4, are actually working correctly. And the very last step is a migration, which is where you simultaneously remove your hard-coded tags and press the Publish button within Google Tag Manager. So there's a number of folks who have already successfully completed this migration and are super happy with Google Tag Manager. I want to highlight a couple of those. We have this amazing case study with Quinn Street. And what they found is during their adoption of Google Tag Manager, what used to take them 2 weeks now takes less than a day. It's really empowering their marketers to be able to do the types of tasks that they want, even if the marketers have no technical background. And we also have a really great case study with GoPro, which are those cameras for extreme videos for mountain biking, etc. We have GoPro as well as Analytics Pros. And Analytics Pros is one of our certified implementation vendors that I mentioned earlier for the partner-managed installation option. So GoPro worked with Analytics Pros, and they found that they were able to get their marketing and analytics teams to have much more flexibility without having to bother IT. And their installation is actually spanning 2 different content management systems as well as 2 e-commerce platforms. So it's a really complex installation, and they've also been really happy with the scalability of Google Tag Manager. So that's the current state of the world, and I want to talk quickly about how Google Tag Manager is planning to evolve over the coming months. We're very excited about our roadmap. The things that we are willing to say publicly is that we are planning on rolling out reporting on tag firing, support for A/B testing tags, as well as additional templates. And those are just the things that I'm willing to say now. There are so many more things that I'm super excited about for the future. And if you are willing to join us in our journey for a better tagging world and you want to install Google Tag Manager, we also have a technical webinar that we will be having in January. So in this phase right now, if you're during Q4, if you want to be convincing your teammate, assembling your team, thinking about your data collection goals, it's a great time to do that. And if you want a little extra help with the actual nuts and bolts of how would I actually go in, implement this, those are the types of questions we'll be answering during the technical webinar in January. And so the last thing I'll mention before we hand it off to question and answers is that you should go to google.com/tagmanager today and sign up.